They're often narcissistic, so that means that they see themselves as superior to other people. Don't expect this person to be terribly remorseful over what they've done to you. This type of person can be dangerous. Welcome to Fan Mail, a space where I answer your real questions about toxic relationships, narcissistic abuse, and the long road to healing. I got a letter from someone in Germany about a recent video of mine where I talked about the Dark Triad personality, and I called them a Dark Triad personality disorder. And this person wrote in to correct me that it wasn't actually a disorder, but actually it's a subclinical descriptor that we're trying to understand better. So I thought I would pause and take a moment to talk about how even diagnoses occur, what makes a disorder, and what is a Dark Triad personality type. So thank you so much for this listener's correction. If this person was actually right, the Dark Triad personality type is a type. It's not a disorder. It's not in the DSM-5. So why does that matter? Well, in the DSM-5 is how we actually diagnose someone. So when you come in to see a psychologist or psychiatrist or a social worker, we're assessing whether or not you have some type of a condition, a mental health condition or personality disorder, or maybe there's some form of a physiological condition that's impacting you psychologically. And then based upon that, we would give you a diagnosis. And there's codes that we'd use that would help indicate to someone reading it what diagnosis that you got. So when you get to know the DSM-5 really well, you can start to recognize the codes. When someone says this person has a 296, you would know, oh, that probably is an affective disorder. I hope I got that right. But anyway, you know what I mean. So when it comes to personality disorders, they're actually not conditions, they're disorders. And the big difference between those two is a condition is something that you're experiencing that makes you feel miserable. A disorder is something that you may not feel a lot of feelings about. You may just think it's the expression of you, but it's making your life hard and it's probably affecting those around you. So those are personality disorders, and there's actually 10 of them. And you hear about the most of the ones that are called cluster B. We actually have cluster A, B, and C, but we don't talk a whole lot about A's and C's because even though they do make it difficult for relationships, but they're not as overtly harm-based as the cluster B. And in cluster B, there are 4 types of personalities that we identify that make up the cluster B group, and that is antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder. There is another personality type that does cause a lot of problems, but it's not a cluster B, and that's the paranoid personality disorder. But when you look at antisocial personality disorder, which is really a big, huge catch-all phrase to describe behavior that gets people into legal trouble, there are some unique differences between types of individuals or types of personalities within that group. And one of the types that comprises that group is called the Dark Triad personality. And that is an individual that has 3 big components to their personality type. They're often narcissistic. So that means that they see themselves as superior to other people. They think quite highly of themselves. They believe that they're entitled to what they want when they want it. They often have a low empathy, and when their ego gets threatened, then they get quite injured by that, quite affected by that. There's also psychopathy, which means they're impulsive. There's a callousness or a ruthlessness to them. They're probably thrill-seeking, have problems with impulse control, and most things don't really make them terribly afraid. But in addition to these 2 that we talk a lot about, there's also Machiavellianism, which really comes out of a book, an observation of a book, which describes someone who's strategically manipulative, who's charming and suave. They are very good at grooming other people, but they have this belief that in which the ends justify the means, and they're very good at working their way into making really powerful connections with people in order to take advantage of them. Unfortunately, when you have these three traits come together, you have somebody who's extremely sophisticated at manipulation and exploitation. Because of the ruthlessness of the psychopathy, they're willing to do whatever it takes in order to get their needs met. And the narcissism makes them think that they really deserve to have their needs met, that they're better than other people, they're superior in some way. But then the Machiavellianism makes them really good at charming and swaying people to do things towards their end. So this means this person is a really great risk of exploitation, of infidelity, of bullying, of doing fraudulent things, of just being a harmful person. And even though maybe it's not something we can actually technically diagnose, it's important to know that this exists because it can help you become better at spotting somebody who may be a danger to you. So here's some things to watch out for that will signal to you that you may have met somebody who has some of these traits and be on the spectrum. Watch out for a pattern of deceit. Even if it's white lies, what they're doing is protecting their advantage. Watch out for someone who uses charm and then switches. They'll maybe love bomb and then they'll devalue. You'll see this rapid, like almost two-facedness. They'll present one way to get into someone's good graces and they'll talk bad about them behind their back. They're a rule bender. They will always do things in their favor. And when they feel like there's some form of injury that occurs to them, like somehow maybe you didn't respond quite in the right way, or you're not talking them up in quite in the way that they want, this is a person who's willing to retaliate. They're willing to find ways to sabotage. And unfortunately, this isn't a person who's terribly open to feedback. They don't tend to learn over time. So don't expect this person to be terribly remorseful over what they've done to you, and don't expect them to show any kind of effort towards change. So it's important for us to understand that this type of person exists and that this type of person can be dangerous. So if you meet someone like this, please be very aware that this is somebody that you should stay far from and certainly not get into any kind of arrangement with them, whether it's romantic or professional. Whether it's romantic or professional. So yes, it may be a clinical subtype. It's not technically a DSM-5 diagnosis, but it doesn't mean it's any less noteworthy or dangerous. So thank you so much to the one who sent in the letter about this, correcting me. I do appreciate trying to keep this information as accurate as possible. And if you have a question for me, whether it's the personal situation that you're facing, maybe it's something you'd like to learn more about, maybe you realize there's something I've not talked about that you really wish I'd get into, please send me a question. You can put it in a comment or you can email it to me like this individual did, or you can also use the form that I've included in the link below as a way to submit your question. And I will answer it the next time on air.